Okay, I want to be mindful of everyone's time, especially those of you that were here right on time or a little bit early. So we're going to get started now. I'm sure other people will hop on in the next couple of minutes. But thank you so much for joining me today for my favorite class that I teach, which is 5 ways to nail the listing appointment. So if you're following along this month, we're doing a listing series in the office with everything that you need to know to be able to find listings and take them and then create a 5-star customer service experience for your sellers. So if you missed our first session, it was with Lee Quintana, who's one of our top listing agents in our Hudson Valley North office. And she shared a number of ways that she she's lead generating right now for listings. She has a large percentage of market share in the New Paltz and surrounding areas where she focuses, and she gave a lot of good tidbits in that class. At the end of this class, I will send out the recording for this class, and I'll also include the recording from that session too, just in case you missed it. And then there's going to be a number of documents that we're going to go over today that I'll also share with you in the follow-up. So today's class is all about how do you turn a potential client into an actual client. After today, there's 2 more sessions. The next one, because you're going to learn everything you need to know today about winning the listing. The next class is going to be how to take that listing and market it well, because we know that well-marketed listings can lead to buyers, right? Buyer leads. You really never have to lead generate for a buyer ever again if all you did was lead generated for listings and then marketed them appropriately. You'll get more than enough buyer leads than you could ever want. And then our final session of our listing series is all about negotiation. So in the current market, how do you negotiate? How do you maintain to be a strong negotiator in the current market so that you can get your clients, your sellers, the highest amount of money in the shortest amount of time? So if you're taking notes, I would make that your first note. That's what sellers always want. They want the most amount of money in the least amount of time, unless there's some weird exception and they don't want to sell for their timeline is off. But usually most of them want to sell right now. The ones that want you to list their house right now, they want you to sell it right now, and they want to get the most money. So we're going to talk all about negotiation tactics in the 4th session. So like I mentioned, today is going to be all about 5 ways to win the listing appointment when you go on the listing appointment. So before we can dig into the 5 different strategies, I think it's important to start with why it's so important to focus your business on taking listings. And we already touched on one of those ways, one of those reasons, which is that listings generally bring buyer leads. And the MREA book, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, says that a well-marketed, well-priced listing should bring you to the 4 commissions. So you list the house, you find a buyer for the house, and then if you market it well, you should be able to generate at least 2 more buyer clients from that listing that you can go and show other properties to, right? So that's one of the reasons why listings are so important. A second reason, if you're taking notes, I'd write this down. A second reason why taking listings is so important is that listings are time leveraged. So those of you that have worked with both listings and buyers can probably attest that you can work with a seller in much less time than you can work with a buyer. With a buyer, you have to do actual showings with them, right? You have to drive them around. And in our area, that could be, you could be covering multiple counties with a buyer over multiple days. Then you have to coordinate with a mortgage broker to get a pre-approval letter. You're the one writing up the purchase offer. Then you have to negotiate. You have to attend a home inspection. You should be attending an appraisal with your buyers. You're coordinating with a lot more moving parts and players than when you take a listing. When you take a listing, you go on the listing appointment, and a lot of the other things that are happening, unless you're at the house showing it, can happen from the comfort of your own home. So studies show that in the same time you can work with 7 to 8 buyers, you can generally list and sell 14 to 15 homes. So the same amount of hours as it would take to work with 7 or 8 buyers and run around with them and do all of the inspections and all the negotiations and all the paperwork and all the things. In that same amount of hours, you could work with double the amount of sellers. So that's another great reason why working with sellers is an important focus for your business. We touched on marketing a little bit, but there's so many ways that you can market your listing, not only for more listings, but for buyers. When you have a listing that you've taken in an area, you now have a reason to reach out to all of the neighbors, right? So now you can circle prospect around that house. When you just list it, you should be reaching out to the homeowners, either through mailings or door knocking if that's allowed in your area. We still cannot cold call, right? We're still not allowed to do that, but there's other ways to get in touch with people. You could host an open house. That's another way to market. By the way, hosting an open house is a good excuse to go talk to the neighbors again. They're all homeowners. That's a good way to introduce yourself to the neighbors and get in front of them. After the open house, if you get offers, is that a third way to talk to that neighborhood? Of course it is. So if you have 5 buyers walk into your open house and one of them ends up writing an offer, but 4 of them want to live in the neighborhood, or say all 5 write an offer, well, only one of them can actually live in the house. I don't think they're going to sell it to 5 separate buyers. So does that create another opportunity to go back to the neighbors and say, it's me again, the agent that has your neighbor's house sold. So just like I mentioned last time, we've listed the house. I did my open house. I invited to you on Saturday. We had 20 agents or 20 people come through. We got 5 offers. One of them was accepted. That means I have a list of 4 people that want to live in your neighborhood. By any chance, are any of your neighbors thinking about selling? By the way, I didn't say, are you thinking about selling? I said, are any of your neighbors thinking about selling? And I'll tell you that when you put it that way, if they're thinking about selling, they'll tell you, right? And if not, that you might find out that somebody else is in the neighborhood interested in selling. And then again, you can reach out to them when the house closes. Especially if it's closing at or above asking price or with multiple offers. I just wanted to let you know that your neighbor's home finally sold. You have new neighbors. It's very exciting. And we luckily were able to get 4 offers, sold X amount over asking price. And that means that your house might be worth more now than it was before I sold your neighbor's house. Would you like a free equity analysis? Complimentary, because you're you're part of the neighborhood where I do business. So it's a great way to build your database too when you are taking listings. They're also social proof. Studies show that on social media, people generally are drawn mostly to listings. Sales stats are okay. I don't think anyone reads the testimonials, although those are good to post just to have them on there. What people are actually interested in and where you'll get the most leads from is when you post listings for sale. It's also the way that you get social proof with your personal sphere of influence on social media or through email marketing that you are a top agent in the area where you sell real estate. Another reason is generally when you're on the listing side in most of the areas where we service, you are keeping a larger amount of the commission than if you're on the buyer side. So same transaction. And when you're a buyer, you're spending double the time and you might not be making you might be making less than what the listing agent is making. And the most obvious reason why we're doing this listing series and telling everyone to focus on listings in the new year is because we're still in a seller's market, right? We are very much still in a seller's market. Throughout the Hudson Valley, we're not anticipating that that's going to change. We're seeing days on market, months of inventory tick up slightly, but not a huge amount. By the way, if you want to track the market closely, then you should be on Rosemary's OP update calls. Every Tuesday, Rosemary does a deep dive in one of our areas, Tuesday morning at 9:30. Where she will pull up facts and figures and stats and all the market things that you need to know. So if you're not on that call, I recommend going on to it. That will teach you, especially now as the market's shifting in real time, how to have these conversations with sellers, which is one of the tactics we're going to go over in a little bit. So hopefully now you're convinced to stay for the next 50 minutes of my class because I just made you excited to take a bunch of listings and for all the fun reasons why listings are important. And so now the key is to figure out how to do as many as possible. So I'm going to go over 5 different tactics that will help you once you've set the listing appointment or once you've gotten a listing lead, which is actually where we're going to start, that is going to help you convert those leads into appointments and the appointments into actual clients. So the first tactic is to get into relationship with the seller as quickly as possible. So if you're taking notes, that's what you'll want to write down. The first tactic is to get into relationship with the seller as quickly as possible. And that starts at the initial phone call with the seller. So a lead comes in, you call them. That's your first opportunity to start creating a relationship with them and build rapport with them. I'm going to share with you a sheet that I always used when I was selling real estate. And I would go down the list and ask them a lot of questions. And so you might be thinking, okay, that's great. Obviously, I want to get into relationship with the people I'm in business with. How do I do that? There's a couple of easy, simple things that you can do. The first thing you should always keep in mind is that the person asking the questions is controlling the conversation. Okay, that is just a general truth. If you are somebody out there, side note, you're somebody out there that is that's worried about networking or gets nervous about going out and networking, but it's one of these things you want to get into. That's my hack. The person asking the questions controls the conversation. If you are just asking the other person questions about them, it will make marketing and lead gen and networking a lot easier. So when you get a lead on the phone, you don't want to start by just spitfiring everything out to them. All your stats, all your testimonials, how great Keller Williams is, how great the office is, blah, 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 blah. They're going to check out so fast and probably just kind of feel like they're being sold to immediately, right? So if your ultimate goal is to get into a relationship with somebody, you have to start by asking them questions at the initial conversation. You want to make sure that the other person you're talking to is spending most of the time talking. I used to keep a Post-it on my computer that literally said, "Why are you talking?" Right? And if it wasn't because I was asking someone a question, then I would think through that. Now they might have questions for you, right? That's fine. But for the most part, you want to be the one asking the question. So if then you're saying, what are the questions that I can ask? This is a basic form that, again, I will share my screen. And again, I will share this afterwards in the email. So this is a seller lead sheet that I always used when I was lead generating. So I would print out a bunch of these. By the way, this was an easy way to track my leads too. You can also do this in Command really easily. I've sold real estate before Command. I haven't been selling real estate since Command has been more in play. So this is my old school way of doing it. You can do this in Command though. So you see at the top, it's the date, the person's name, email, phone number, address of the house. Are they selling and buying, right? So if they have to sell, they have to move somewhere. Where are they going? Even if they're selling and they're moving out of the area, hopefully you are then saying, great. Well, the good news is that I'm part of Keller Williams. We're the largest real estate franchise in the country. There's 180,000 real estate agents that cover the United States and multiple different countries. And I offer a program for my sellers where I match you with a perfect agent in whatever area you are going to buy. Going to buy in. And in that way, it will make it easier than if you were just going to Google a real estate agent in North Carolina, say. I will actually vet them for you, connect you with them, and then also we'll work together with that agent to make sure that if you're buying and moving out of the area, that makes it an easy process for you. The next thing you want to know is if there's a mortgage on the property. And if so, do they know the payoff amount? And if they don't know the payoff amount, that's okay, right? That's okay. But that's something that you'll want to know before we meet. So before we meet, you're going to want to find your last statement, your last mortgage statement, or call your mortgage company or log into your portal, wherever you get your mortgage information, and figure out what the payoff amount is. This could be particularly important if they've bought their house recently, right? So a lot of people paid cash, and yet some people did take out mortgages for houses at the height of COVID, where they might have bid up the home. Depending on how much they put down, it's important, as we're seeing a little bit of a deceleration in the market, that you understand if they have a mortgage, what the payoff amount is. And that counts for like second home, right? Like a lot of people remodeled during the pandemic. Did they take out a home equity line of credit to do that? What is that? That's important. If they're buying also, have they talked to a mortgage broker yet? If they're if they have and they're pre-approved, what's their loan type? What is their loan type? What is their reason for moving? This is what you really want to put a star next to. This is the most important, right? Can we all agree that sometimes you get a house on the market and then the seller becomes difficult? Has it ever happened to anyone else or just me? Sometimes they seem so nice and then you get their house on the market and you're like, well, what just happened? So you want to know where they're going because that is their true motivation. Most people don't just sell to cash out and have a bunch of money sitting in their pocket. Sometimes they do. Maybe they do if they're investors or they were doing short-term rentals and they want to cash out on that. But most people are moving because of some type of life event, right? That's one of the benefits of selling real estate. One, we can sell it to anybody because everybody has to have a place to live. And two, a lot of times it's based off of personal circumstances. That's why there's never a month where 0 houses sell. Because in every month there's always people changing jobs and having babies and getting married and wanting to move and getting a raise and wanting to upsize or moving to be closer to their kids or wanting to downsize, right? Life events always happen regardless of the economy. And that's why selling real estate, there'll never be a month or even a week where no houses sell, right? So what you want to do is figure out their reason for moving. An easy question to ask is what is causing you to want to sell your home? So here's another tip if you're taking notes. Avoid the word why. Avoid starting questions with why. Why are you moving? Why subconsciously makes people defensive. It is a weird unconscious thing that happens where when you start to say why, they automatically shut down and they feel like it's some people can find it aggressive. It's not a great sales word to use. That is in any circumstance. So if you are working with a buyer and they want to write a super lowball offer, coming back and saying why do you want to offer that is not probably the best way to do it. Instead, what you can say is, what is causing you to want to start at that price? It's the same question, but you'll find you'll get less defensive answers if you remove why. So the reason for the move could be, what is causing you to want to move? What is the reason that you're interested in listing your home for sale? Much easier question. Who will live in the house? Usually this will come up in question as part of conversation. If it does, you will just want to take notes there. You probably, for fair housing purposes, don't want to be asking particularly who exactly is living in the house and what's going on and what's your dynamic there. You want to be careful there, but if they offer it up as part of the reason for the move or something like that, you can take notes there. You want to then set the listing appointment. Here's an important thing to remember about the listing, setting a listing appointment. You should never be objection handling on the phone. Don't objection handle on the phone. Your only goal when you are on the phone with somebody is to, 1, build rapport with them through asking a lot of questions, and 2, set an appointment with them to go see their house. So if they start asking, what is your commission? How many houses have you sold in my neighborhood? What sets you apart from the competition? How do you market homes for sale? Should be your response. That is a great question. That's exactly why we should meet. And then just close them for the appointment. Are you available this day at this time or this day at this time, right? Don't objection handle on the phone, or try not to as much as possible. Okay, then notes on the house. So then you want to ask them, of course, okay, so tell me a little bit about your house. Any recent improvements? Do you know of any type of work that needs deferred maintenance on the house? Anything of note that you want me to keep in mind as I start to look into your home to prepare for our meeting? Take a lot of copious notes there. And then you want to know what their timeline is for listing their house. So let me ask you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, right now in our market, it takes anywhere between 60 and 90 days, generally, from the time we get an accepted offer to the time we get to a closing table. So if I came over on Thursday and listed your house on Friday, which by the way, probably isn't going to happen, but just say hypothetically, if we follow my marketing plan and my pricing strategy, you could potentially be looking at a closing in 60 to 90 days. Does that work for your timeline? If they're not immediately looking to list their home for sale, you can make kind of an executive decision. Does it really make sense to go meet with them right now? Or is your time better used lead generating for listings that are ready now and then putting them into a follow-up plan so that if they say, oh no, we can't move in 90 days, we're thinking more like in next fall we want to move. Okay, that's fine. What I used to do if that was the case, I would offer to stop by for like 15 minutes and just do a quick walkthrough. So I would say, okay, that's great. So if you're thinking about listing in the fall, are you planning on doing any work to your house between now and when we list your home for sale? And a lot of times it's like painting, sometimes it's bigger projects, but a lot of times it's just little things. Excellent. So what I'd love to do is just stop by for 15 minutes and do a walkthrough of the house so that before you spend any money on things, I can get eyes on it and tell you if it's going to give you a return on your investment. And then you're already setting an expectation that's going to be a shorter appointment, not a full listing appointment. You're not going to sit with them for an hour and a half, but you'll do a quick walkthrough, again, with the goal of meeting them in person to continue to build rapport with them so that ultimately they think about you. If you're not able to do that and they really are like, you know what, it doesn't make sense for you to come over now. Can you just follow up with me in 3 or 4 months? You follow up. So we don't want to list till next August. Can you follow up with us then? Sure, that's no problem. I'm going to put in my notes to follow up with you. If anything changes, let me know. Don't wait until whenever they tell you to follow up to actually follow up with them. You want to probably take half of the time. So if they tell you to follow up in 4 months, I would follow up in 2 months. And this is a follow-up. It's not, hey, I know that you told me to follow up with you in 4 months, but why don't we just list your house for sale now, right? It's, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, it's Rita Gildersleeve again. And if you remember, we talked a couple months ago. I was just going through my notes from our conversation. And I know that we're scheduled to talk I just wanted to make sure we're still on track to talk in 2 more months and make sure nothing has changed yet. And at the house, anything new? How's the deck coming? Did you restain it? Do you have the pool open for the summer if it's now summertime, right? Okay, great. Looking forward to talking to you in 2 more months. If anything changes, feel free to reach out to me before then. I had a listing once. I went, these were sellers in New Windsor, and they had a beautiful house. I went and did a listing appointment, a 15-minute kind of walkthrough listing appointment. And they at the time were building a house in North Carolina that had just broken ground. So it was going to be like 6 months before that house was going to be ready. And they didn't want to put their house on the market until they could really like get into the house in North Carolina. So I said, no problem, I'll follow up with you. And it was, they told me to follow up with them in September. I called in June, and then I texted them in June, same thing, just checking in, wanted to see how the house progress was going and make sure we're still on track to talk in September. The husband called me back the next day and said, you know, it's really funny. When you were calling us, we had another agent at our house sitting across the table from us at that very moment talking to us because she had just sold our neighbor's house. And we saw her in the yard, and then my wife wanted her to come over and do her listing spiel. And so the house is being constructed much faster than we thought in North Carolina. And so we've actually moved up our timeline. We want to list the house sooner. And we probably would have just listed with this agent because we couldn't quite remember where to get your contact information from. And then your call came in that day. And so now we were like, no, this is a sign. We have to call Rita back. Like, we really liked her when we talked to her last time. And so had I not followed up in that way, I probably would have just seen the house come on the MLS, and I would have thought, what the heck? They told me they didn't want to list till September. It's only June. And so I ended up getting the listing, and I actually ended up selling it for about, I think it was like $35,000 more than the other agent said that they could sell it for, with multiple offers. And I sent them off to North Carolina, and the whole thing went well. So again, you want to find out their timeline. And if it's not immediate, you need to have a plan, a follow-up plan This is super easy in Command. If someone says, follow up with me in September, you should be taking notes in your Command, in your contact card in Command, and then set yourself a task for whenever you want to follow up with them. And then if you do that consistently, all you have to do every day is log into Command, go to your tasks, and all of your contact tasks will be there. And it will say, call Millie, call Christine, call Heather, right? Like, it's going to tell you exactly what to do right there. So it's super easy to manage in Command. Okay, any other notes that they keep here? And then you want to put in a source of business. Where'd the business come from? This is super important, right? You need to track, this is important just in general, real estate life. You need to track where your business came from. Was it a referral? Was it a lead from the internet? Was it, sphere of influence? Where did the lead come from? This will help you keep track so that as you're analyzing your business, especially now as the market's shifting, right? And we want to make sure we're keeping a closer eye on our budgets and what we're spending money on. It's important to look periodically. I would say right now as the market's shifting, at least quarterly, looking to see where is my business coming? What am I spending money on, one? And what type of return am I getting, two? And if I'm not getting any return from certain lead sources, should I stop spending money on them and instead redivert those funds into wherever I'm getting money from? Okay, so I would fill out this sheet. Again, you can actually just do this in Command, but I would fill out this sheet. My admin that was working with me at the time would transcribe it into the Command system. And then I would keep this with me. This was also helpful because I could always pull it up. Like, I would keep all the filled out ones in my binder because I'm old school and I like everything to be in paper. So then if someone called me and I was like out and about, I could just pull up their little sheet and be like, oh, right, this is the person that's selling here, and this person, they have to go here, and and I'd have the information right in front of me. Again, another way to build rapport. That's another way to build rapport with people is actually taking good notes and remembering what they told you, right? Active listening is another tip in terms of building rapport and getting into relationship with people, right? So when they're talking to you, my question would be, are you listening just to respond and get your turn to talk again? Or are you listening because you're actively listening to what they're saying and coming up with something that you can, another question as a follow-up question you can ask them? A general rule of thumb is people work with people that they like, right? That's why a lot of times our newer agents, their first couple deals are with their sphere of influence, because people work with people that they like. And so if you're nervous about, oh, if I go on a listing appointment, there's another agent that has all of the market share in this area and they're the top producer, don't worry so much about that. If you're able to build rapport with people, 9 times out of 10, they're going to work with you if they feel like they've made a connection with you. Okay, so that's tactic 1, is to build rapport from the initial phone conversation using that sheet, asking more questions, asking questions and allowing them to do most of the talking, finding out from them what is their motivation for selling as soon as possible, and making sure that you're taking a lot of notes and actively listening to the information that they're giving to you, so that as you continue to build a relationship, you can bring back the topics, the points that they're talking to you about. Any questions on tactic 1? Okay, you can also put things in the chat too. Okay, tactic 2. All people, there are 4, thanks, Donna. There are 4 people, 4 types of people. No, not types of people. There are 4 personality traits, and everybody is a mixture of all 4. So tactic 2, and some of you might be familiar with this, we talk about it a lot at KW, is identifying somebody's DISC profile, D-I-S-C, their DISC profile. You can do this in a number of ways from the initial conversation. And once you get good at identifying this, it will also be very helpful for you on listing presentations to mirror and match them, so that so that you can, so that they feel like they know you. Have you ever gone into a conversation with somebody and you're like, I feel like we just are talking two separate languages. Like this person's over here and I'm over here and I just can't figure out where they're coming from. Or have you ever had a client that is as nice as can be, the nicest person in the world, but does everything the opposite way of the way you would do things? And you're like, I don't understand. Like, I'm giving you the information, or I would do it this way. I'm trying to make that very clear. And you're fighting me on every single thing. It's likely because you have opposite personality types and your mixture is a little bit off. So understanding people's disc profiles can be super important. So everyone is a mixture of all four, and generally you will have two dominant traits that are controlling. So what I'm going to do is share my screen again, because this is another bonus sheet that I will send out in my email. Okay, so the disc profile, there's four, again, like I said, there's a lot. You can Google disc if you want to take the disc because you're curious what you are. I can send you instructions. If you email me, I'm happy to do that. There's four separate personality traits: D, I, S, and C. D stands for dominant. So you can generally spot a high D personality because they are direct and straight to the point. They use what instead of how, meaning that they generally are looking for the bottom line. So instead of worrying about like, what is every single step of the process that you're going to do to sell my house for a bunch of money, like just what's the bottom line? Like, how much have you sold my neighbor's house for? How did you get them over asking price? What are you going to do to sell my house that way? Right? They're more interested in that. They're very results driven. These are the people, when you get on the phone, are just going to blatantly say, like, we're looking to get the most money in the least amount of time. A lot of times they're competitive, and they can, a lot of times you'll see them in leader personality. They can be leaders. A lot of times they're executives or in some type of leadership role. They're drivers. They're really like drivers of the conversation. So somebody that is a high D personality, again, they are going to be the ones that you'll hear. So let me back up. Okay, this is how you figure out on the initial phone call, you can start to piece together what type of personality traits this person might have. Is simply when you get to the list of, can you please describe your house to me? You're going to hear a number of different things. So from a high D dominant or driving personality, a lot of times what you're going to hear from them is, we have the best house on the block. We have the most expensive house on the block. We have granite. No one else has granite. We have an acre. That's the more acreage than what other people have. A lot of times because they're competitive, they will start telling you all sorts of ways why their house is the best, which in their mind means it's going to sell for $1 million more than any other house in the neighborhood because theirs is so good. You're going to hear them compare it to other houses in the area, or maybe sold, things that have sold. And so what you want to do when you're working with a high D personality is you want to make sure that you're results oriented. You want to get to the point quickly with not a lot of small talk. So for somebody that's a high D personality, starting off every conversation with, how's the kids? Did you open the pool for the season? Blah, 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 right? That is going to actually turn them off a little bit because they're probably wanting to get on the phone and figure out, what are you doing this week to market my house? Why isn't my house selling? Or what are you doing with the leads? What's going on with the offers? They want like the bottom line as quickly as possible. They are looking for you to be direct and concise, and then you want to use the big picture and end results as an example. So when you go on a listing presentation and somebody has a high D personality, things that you want to work on with them, or things you want to highlight, are past sales successes. So if you have gotten multiple offers on listings and have sold them for over asking price, that is something you definitely want to highlight with somebody who's a high D personality. Ways that you've won with clients, ways that you've negotiated strong with clients. Those are things that somebody with a high D personality is going to be looking for. Now, a high I personality, that's influence. So you can spot a high I personality because they're generally the life of the party. They're very optimistic. They're very enthusiastic. They're outgoing. They're persuasive. They're the person when you go to a networking event, you just see them working the room and talking to everybody. Kind of like the life of the party, right? And so when you ask these people on the initial phone conversation, can you please describe your house to me? A lot of times you're going to hear from them how they entertain in their home. So you'll hear, oh, we have a backyard that's great for the 4th of July, and we have dining room table that fits 11 people for the holidays, and the kids love the base. They always have their friends over and they're downstairs in the basement. They view their house as like the center of their social world, and you'll hear them describe it in those terms a lot of times. Now, these people, in contrast to the high D, they want you to build rapport with them, right? These are your social butterflies. So for them, if they get on the phone with you and you're like, hey, so we had 3 showings, this is the feedback, I think we're gonna get an offer, and you just cut to the chase. For someone that's a high D, they're gonna be like, wow, this person's speaking my language. For someone that's a high I, they might say, well, that was really short. Like, that was kind of rude. They didn't even ask me what I'm up to. Like, they didn't like have any type of rapport building at the front. That seemed a little bit off. So with them, you do want to build a little bit more rapport and give them time to verbalize their ideas, right? So you want to let these people talk and get their ideas out and really converse with you. Sometimes people that are a high I personality lack follow through. And so you want to follow up with them with things in writing. These are like, I don't want to say not scatterbrain, but these are the people that generally like, oh yeah, I'll get that to you. And then they go off and do 300 other things and they don't get whatever it is to you. So you want to follow up with them, make it easy for them by following up in writing. And use stories as examples, right? So usually the person that's a social butterfly is walking around a networking event, telling stories, right? And interacting with people. So they're going to like to hear stories as examples. So, oh yeah, your neighbors, they just invited me to the barbecue last weekend and it was really fun. And I was glad to get to know them. And also, I'm helping them buy a house elsewhere, or I'm listing their home, I'm listing their home for sale and it's going so well. So you want to use stories as examples of people that are high I. Okay, so if I've described these two and you're thinking that sounds like me, kind of, a lot of salespeople are high D's and high I's. A lot, like I would say probably the majority of salespeople are high D's and high I's. They're drivers, right? That makes you a good salesperson. You're always looking to get another deal under your belt. You're competitive, you're aggressive. The I is the social butterfly. So you're able to get business together from people because you have a high level of influence and a social network. That is great. And although the majority of salespeople are high D's and high I's, the majority of people in general are high C's and high S's. So this is the importance of understanding the DISC profile, is that if you resonated with the top, so for example, I'm a high I is my highest personality, and my second one very close is high D. Now, before I understood this, some of the things around people with the S personalities and C personalities, I would be like, why do you need so much detail? Like, let's just cut to the chase. Like, let's go. If we want to do this, like, let's just get to the bottom line here. And I don't need to know every single little nuance of everything. Some people, though, that's just how their mind works. So the S is a steady. You can spot a high S personality because they are steady, stable, predictable, even-tempered, loyal, even shy. Someone with a high S personality, you have to be very patient with them and be able to provide answers to the how questions, right? So the high D is not necessarily going to want to know how the sausage is made. They're just going to want to know what you're going to do to get them results. High S and high C personalities are really going to want to be put into a system where they're going to understand what is the next thing to expect. These might also be our people that take longer to make a decision. These might also be the people that interview 3 or 4 real estate agents before deciding, or the buyer that you bring to 100 houses and you're like, why aren't you writing an offer? All these houses are great. And every time it's a lot of questions about what's about, you know, all the little things going on. And so when you're working with them effectively, you have to be patient with them. You have to give them time to adapt or change to make a decision. You do not want to rush them at all. And then you want to use examples of what to expect next without using pressure. So if you're asking again the question, sorry if you can hear my dog barking, but if you're asking again the question, what can you please describe your house to me? Somebody that's in a high S is probably going to describe it in a way in terms of how they enjoy the house. So you might hear, because they're steady, stable, they might even be shy, they might be homebodies. So they'll probably say, oh, you know, the family room is really great to cuddle up with a book and light a fire. And it's really comfy around the holidays. And it's a quiet street and we are very private here, right? Like those types of things you'll hear from an S-type personality. Now a high C, these are your analytical people. You can spot them because they're systematic, they're precise, they're detail-oriented. They ask every question under the sun at a home inspection. They pull out spreadsheets when you get to the home, after you get the home inspection results. I had clients once that put the whole home inspection results into a spreadsheet, and it was every single thing, and then it was all of the estimates, and then it was all of this thing, and it was how much of a credit it was all organized. I looked at it, I'm like, this is insane. Like we should just ask for a blank credit because this is the opposite of how my brain works, but that's how their brain works, which is great. These people are very detail oriented and are interested in the system and process of things. So to work effectively with a high C personality, you want to be prepared. You want to give them details. You want to make sure that you're using data, systems, and checklists to work within. A great hack working with somebody that's a C or an S is using the client updates in command. So using the task lists in command. This is the most underutilized thing that I don't understand why more agents don't use this. It would save you so much time and actually it would create a much better customer service experience for your clients. You can create a task list for your opportunities. As you are checking things off the task list, the same stuff you're going to be doing anyway, it will auto-populate an automatic email to go out to your client that will say, today I completed ordering, checking in with the appraisal. I checked in with your attorney on the status of the contract, whatever else it is. I called the title company, whatever it is, it automatically will shoot that update out to them. It's such a great tool. And again, it makes people feel like they're part of a system and a proven system. And especially for somebody that's a high C or a high S, they're going to really like that. So a high C, you're going to know them because when you ask them to describe their house on the initial intake form, they are going to give you the stats. You're going to hear it's an 1,800 square foot ranch. It's 3 beds. It's 2 baths. It's hardwood floors. We redid the kitchen 2 years ago. The roof is new 6 years ago. You're not going to hear about how they entertained. You might not hear about how it's better than all the rest of the houses on the block. You're probably not going to hear anything about how they enjoy the house themselves. They are going to tell you like the exact statistics for that house. So now, once you know all of this, then what does that mean? What you want to do then is when you go on the listing presentation, you want to keep this in mind, right? So the listing presentation is usually 3 parts. The first part is you walk in and you're touring around the house. Again, to build rapport, go back to our first tactic to continue to build rapport. As you're touring around the house, you want to be the person asking them questions, not doing most of the talking. When you sit down at their table, whatever it is, the dining room table, the second step is to go over your marketing strategy with them. This is where you get to kind of give them the same information every time. You don't have to redo it based on their personality profile, but you can deliver the information in a certain way that will speak their language. So if it's a high D, you might just cut to the chase and say, okay, so my guess is that your goal is to sell your house for the most amount of money in the least amount of time. here's 5 things I'm going to do: professional photography, drone photography, Matterport, social media, blah, blah, blah. We have a large network at KW. We have 600 agents in the Hudson Valley. We have 180, right? Like the whole thing the whole spiel. Someone that's an S, you might add in more stories as an example. Okay, so I'll just share with you. Your neighbor's house, I did my photographer, my drone, and my videographer, and on Zillow, we were the #1 house in the neighborhood that got the most views. And that resulted in doing an open house that got 50 people through the door for them, right? So you're telling them stories, and we got, and we were able to get really great neighbors in for you guys to have new neighbors, blah, blah, blah. Someone that's a C is again going to be kind of bottom line focused. So it could be a little bit similar to the high Ds, but you might throw in some more stats. So you might spend a little more time talking about the market to them. So what we're seeing on the market is, on average, days on market is X. If you're with my office in Kingston, you can say, by the way, our office has the lowest days on market of any office in the top 10 in the Ulster County Board of Realtors. We sell houses on average 34 days in 34 days. Which is much lower than any other brokerage. That's a good selling thing for a C personality, for anyone really, but C will like that. And someone that's an S, you can, again, you want to build rapport with them, but you want to watch with the S's and the C's, if you feel like you're more of a high D, high I, you want to make sure that you are slowing your rate of speed a little bit. So if you haven't noticed, you've all been sitting with me for 47 minutes. I talk kind of fast, just a little. Sometimes I can, someone that's a high S and a high C, I can lose them very quickly. Some of you, hopefully none of you on the class are like, slow it down. You're talking way too fast. Someone that's an S and a C, you really do need to slow down with them. Let them digest the information that you're giving them, and then purposely asking them, are there any other questions? Does that make sense? Is there anything else I can explain about that? Right? Like they really want to understand the process. And so you want to give them time to process the information you're giving them and ask you follow-up questions so that you can make sure you're speaking their language essentially. Okay, any questions? The first 2 taxes, we have 3 more to get through, but the first 2 usually take us the longest. So any questions on the DISC profile? Okay.
I have a question.
Okay,
Where
great.
in Command can you find the task that follows up all the steps that you're going to use when you're closing with a client? Like if you said I spoke to the attorney today, and it sends them an email. And what is that called in Command?
That's an opportunity task. So when you go into the opportunities tab in Command, and you click on, and it's the section that has like them all in little blocks that you can move along the different stages. You'll see at the bottom a checklist, and it will say like 0 out of blank, like 11. That will be how that will preload the checklist in, and you can add them there. You can also set up default checklists in Command. And it's easier. It's probably easier if this is okay. I'll find a video explaining this and include it in my email after the class. Is that okay? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Yeah, then everyone's gonna get.
Thank you.
I try to say, go here, go there. So I'll find a video for that. Verdell, I see your hand raised. What questions can you answer?
Yes, hi. I think I missed the part there. You said there were 3 parts too. The listing, the marketing, the listing. There's one where you actually roam the house. The second one is where you go over the marketing strategies.
Yep.
But I think I missed number 3.
Oh, because I don't think I said it. So thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thanks. See, I'm a high D and high I personality. So I was like, let's just move right on. And I'm not detail oriented. So thank you. Yes. Yeah. Number 3 is the CMA, right? Make sure you do it in that order. You don't want to walk into someone's house and just sit down and start telling them their house isn't worth as much as what they're going to expect, right? That's one of the benefits of doing the walkthrough, building rapport with them, asking them a bunch of questions, going over all your marketing with them so that they're like really excited to have you list their house. Then you get into the CMA. Some agents will do a second appointment. Some agents will look at the house and say, okay, I'm going to come back tomorrow or in 2 days now that I've seen your house and do a CMA. That's perfectly fine. If you've gotten together a range or whatever, you want to do that last. And hopefully by that time, they like you enough that they're going to be receptive to your commission and your pricing and all of those things. Any other questions? Okay, great. All right, so we're on tactic number 3. Tactic number 3 is to know the market inside and out and research their home extensively before you get on the listing presentation, right? So with Zillow and Realtor.com and all these websites, most of the time the consumer knows every single thing going on in their neighborhood, right? And they're depending on you to also know everything that's going on in their neighborhood. That's one of the main value propositions that they're looking for a real estate agent, is that they understand the local market and how to help them navigate it. So you want to make sure before you go on the listing presentation that you are extensively researching anything in the neighborhood and what it's sold for. Even if it's not a direct comp that you're using in a CMA, you need to know what happened. And I would even look up expireds, what's expired in their neighborhood, because they're going to know that too, that somebody's house didn't sell. So you want to look at what's on the market, what's under contract, what's sold, what's expired, right? You want to look at all of that. You also want to pull up their neighborhood stats. So that is days on market for their particular area, average sales price in their area, average list price to sales price ratio. These are all stats you can pull out of the MLS. When you get to the CMA, the third part of the listing presentation, you should be practicing it enough so that you can generally go over it without having to stare at it and read it verbatim, right? So you should be able to have a good conversation with somebody about the CMA and the comps for their house without being like, oh, where's that one? I thought I saw this one. One of them had a pool. Oh yeah, it's this one that had the pool. No, you should know the comps inside and out. If possible, preview homes in their neighborhood beforehand, right? Go preview some of the houses. And then you can say, well, I was in your neighbor's house the other day and they do have the bonus room that you don't have, or they have, 2 more acres or whatever it is, or you have 2 more acres. That's great for you. And then very important hack is to make sure that you look on the MLS to see if their house has been listed before. If you can find an old listing, you have then set yourself up for success, because you're going to have a bunch of information, potentially pictures of what the house looks like if it's anytime recent, or old pictures so you can see when you get there that they've done a lot of work, what they thought their house was worth. If it's an expired listing in particularly, right, you're going to have a good idea about what they think they can get for their house. And anything else that might be important. So do some recon on the MLS before you actually go on the listing presentation. You can do this from the old listing. You should also be pulling up Realist, or if you're in Ulster County, the Ulster County Information Services, or Greene County, the Information Services tab, looking at where the property lines lie for the property, looking to see on the property card what's listed there. Is there a shed? Is there a pool? Is there, that way when you get to the house, and you see a shed and you see a 4th bathroom in the basement and you see a finished rec room and you don't see any of that, you can be proactive and start asking some questions. That, again, helps you build rapport with the person, and also you'll show up as a professional. You did appropriate research for the house. Okay, tactic 4 is to know your elevator pitch and your unique value proposition. So what is it that makes you stand out from the competition? I know Anna Gibbs teaches a great class on this. Maybe we'll ask her to teach this class for you guys on how to develop a unique value proposition. But what do you do that sets you apart? Do you sell homes faster? Do you do special marketing? Do you have a big database that gets all of your listing blasts? Do you have a certain percentage of market share in that target market that is going to help you sell homes, quickly, or you're, generally the person that's selling things in the area? If you're a newer agent, can you talk a little bit about the power of our brokerages that you're partnered with, right? That you have a 600 person network throughout the Hudson Valley and 180,000 network throughout the country. And you can market homes to agents anywhere. And you have an app and a website and all of these things. We have an exclusive partnership with Facebook and Instagram, right? That you don't need to have high sales stats to talk about that. That's a great unique value proposition. I can run an ad through our proprietary technology that I can spend $20 and get in front of 1,000 people versus somebody else that doesn't have access to this technology putting $20 behind an ad might only get in front of a couple hundred people. We get a farther reach because of our partnership with Facebook and Instagram. That's a good unique selling proposition, right? Yours might be different. I would think about it a little bit and develop it. It shouldn't be long. It's an elevator pitch. The idea is that in the time it would take for you to get in an elevator with somebody and get out, you can explain what you do a little bit differently. If you need help with this, I would reach out to either a team leader in your office. If you're in productivity coaching, your productivity coach will see maybe if we can get a class on the calendar about developing your unique value proposition, but you want to make sure that you do that. And then tactic 5, and this is one that I see agents get scared of all the time. Tactic 5 is don't be afraid to close people for the listing or the appointment. So if you're on the phone with somebody, you have to be comfortable with closing them to set the appointment. When you're on the listing presentation, don't wait for them to say, okay, we want to work with you. You have to get comfortable with closing people on the listing presentation. This also, as a side note, is the same thing, is the same rules apply when you're talking to somebody. If you're not asking them purposely, who do you know that's interested to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? You are probably maybe thinking in your head, yeah, but we just had a real estate conversation. So they would tell me if they were interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. Well, nope. Psychologically, people will not a lot of times unless you specifically ask them. So you have to get comfortable to close for the deal. So a couple ways you can do this. You can future pace people. So when you're on the listing appointment, that looks like telling them what the next steps are. So for instance, when you sit down to do your marketing and you say, okay, so the next thing that I do if you decide to list your home with me is I hire a professional photographer. Right? And I hire a professional photographer because your home's first impression is always going to be made online. And so we do a professional photographer. Then at the end, when you're blah, 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 and you're going to close them, an easy way to say is, okay, so I can text my photographer right now and see when I can get them on the calendar. Do I have the commitment to being able to list your home for sale? So future pace them, whatever's going to happen next. You should always tell people what's going to happen next, just as a general rule of thumb, buyers or sellers. Last thing that you say on the phone to them is, okay, so what I'm going to do next is write the purchase offer and send it to you through DocuSign to sign with the agency disclosure, blah, 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 or whatever. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is get your house on the MLS and get showing time set up, right? Whatever's going to happen next, you should future pace them. You also can do trial closes when you are at a listing appointment. A trial close is basically just asking questions that will have them saying yes as the appointment is going on, which at the end will make people more likely to say yes when you say, okay, so are you ready to list with me? So for example, once you go through, say you go through the social media thing, we have a partnership and blah, 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 blah. Great. Can you see how marketing your property on social media would help your house sell for in the shortest amount of time for the most amount of money? Yes. Excellent. Great. Can you see how it would be a benefit to be partnered with an agent at Keller Williams that's part of the largest real estate franchise in the country? Yes. Great. Right. So you're just asking them questions and they're subconsciously saying yes to, and that will make it easier to close them at the end. This could also be, do you agree that at this price we would secure a buyer quickly for your house? Great. Okay, can you also see how if we don't secure a buyer for your house in the first 10 days, that it's likely an indication that the market is telling us that it won't bear the price that we just gave it. By the way, when you get to commission and when you get to anything about the market and pricing their home, it's never I think. Remove I from your whole verbiage. It's never I think, it's the market, that what the market is going to tell us. The market's going to tell us if we got the price right or wrong, because you'll either have an offer or you won't. Right? A third way to do that is asking, is there any of not solidifying, and I know we're going over, so it's okay if everyone needs to hop off, but it will be 2 more minutes and then we can do questions for a couple minutes. Is there anything else that would keep you from agreeing to list with me as a way to isolate objections? Okay, so you want to start with, is there anything else that's keeping you from listing with me? Sometimes you'll hear, well, we're interviewing other agents. Okay, great. Always start with whatever objection they give you. The next thing you say, you always want to say, okay, great, or that's great, or a good question, or whatever it is, right? You want to confirm with them that that's fine. Let me ask you though, is there something you were expecting me to say here at the listing presentation that you didn't hear that you're looking to hear from a different real estate agent? No. Okay, because you did confirm with me that my marketing is good and my social media is going to get, and the pricing is good. So let me ask you, does it really make sense to meet with the other agent if all of your needs are being met, right? Sometimes they're like, well, I already have the appointment set, and then you can figure out if you want to, if you can, sometimes agents would say, okay, well, I'm happy to call that agent and let them know that I secured the listing. So you don't have to have that uncomfortable conversation. That's okay. If they have an objection, handle it. And then you want to make sure you ask again, is there any other reason that's keeping you from agreeing to list your home with me? And then go through it again. Don't stop asking that question repeatedly until you get them to finally say, no, that's it. Great. Okay. So if there's nothing else that we need to go over, then then we should move forward with signing the paperwork, right? So you want to make sure that you isolate an objection one at a time, handle that particular objection, and then go back to asking again, is there anything else that's keeping you from listing with me today? There's also a list of closes that I will share in my follow-up email as well. Okay, overall questions at all about anything? Now, it's not a script, that's just saying things over and over again. Andrea, sorry. Do you have a question? I think she's on mute. Okay, anybody else? Questions? All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Again, you'll get the recording, you'll get the bonus stuff I went over. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me or call me. I'm happy to chat and help you guys, and so that we all go out and take more listings. Oh, and if you are staying for Eileen's class, it's this link. So Eileen right now is going to tell you how to mine the gold in your database class. It's happening right now, so don't go away.
Hang on, guys.
I'm going to make you the host.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
All right, I'll give you guys a few minutes, bathroom break, get a cup of coffee, and I'll meet you back in a few minutes, okay? Hi, Madeline. I see you. I don't see anyone else. How are you? You look warm, someplace warm. I can't hear.
Oh, there you are. I'm doing pretty good, Eileen. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. How about yourself?
I'm good. Very good.
Good.
I had a good lead in for my class, so this is good.
Yeah. Rita did a great job.
Good.
Yep. And we've been very busy with our command lately. So
I have heard. I am very excited about it.
yeah. It's been great. And really
Good,
using a
good.
lot more of the features on there, which is
Great.
fun.
Yeah, oh, good. I'm glad. And it's not costing you any extra to use it, right? So you might as well be using it.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah, awesome. We're gonna have to get you to speak at one of our meetings about how much you love it. And also, just so
Yeah.
you know, they're gonna be for family reunion. They're gonna be doing some updates for the teams. So we'll see some new things. Hi, Jackie. I
Great.
see you.
Great.
All right, guys, are you guys back? Are you ready to get started here? If you can, turn on your cameras. Oh, hi, Millie. Nice to see everybody's faces. If you
Hi,
can
how
turn
are
your
you?
Good. If you could turn your cameras on, that would be great. It helps me teaching the class. Otherwise, I'm teaching to a brick wall, and that's not fun for anybody, right? All right, so
Mhm.
today's class is going to be Mind the Goal in your database. So let me start recording. Hopefully everybody's back.
Oh, I'm muted. Hi.
Okay, hi, who's that?
That was me. I think I was muted when you said hello, Jackie.
Oh, Jackie, okay, hi. All right, I'm gonna just
Yeah.
stop the recording and then I'm going to start it again. So just give me 1 minute.